Town officials are working to prevent algae blooms in Lovell's Pond. JetBlue will begin direct flights to Hyannis from New York City in June, and the town released the capital improvement plan for fiscal year 15. These stories and more on this episode of Barnstable Today. It's Wednesday, March 19th, 2014. I'm Sarah Mannel. Recurring algae blooms are a problem for Lovell's Pond in Marston's Mills. Town officials hope an alum treatment will prevent those blooms. The Conservation Commission talked about the project during its meeting this week. Conservation agent Rob Gatewood says the treatment has been used successfully in other areas of town.
We've had a run of about 4 years with an experimental aeration system in the pond, which was basically a 50-50 venture between us and the state. We had problems maintaining the mechanical reliability of the aeration system in a environment where downtime kills you. Downtime sees the pond go anoxic quickly and the phosphorus to reemerge from the bottom quickly. That is, more quickly than we could get a contractor down to set the machine right. So it was, it's a nice idea. It's a good system, but it wasn't good enough. So we've had some experience with alum treatment. We're going on 20 years of good water quality derived from an alum treatment of a badly polluted pond. That's Hamblin Pond. It's emerged over the last 2 decades as the premier trout fishery for ponds on the Cape.
The Conservation Commission is awaiting a letter of approval from the State Division of Fisheries and Wildlife before taking action on the plan. The Commission hopes to have approval by its next meeting, April 1st. Cape Codders will now be able to get a direct flight to New York City from Hyannis. JetBlue announced the new seasonal service earlier this month. Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce CEO Wendy Northcross says the announcement came as a surprise.
This is an effort that was really under full court press about, I'd say a year and a half ago, and working with Senator Wolf's office, working with Bud Rielt at the airport. The Cape Cod Chamber lent its expertise with our destination marketing research, who travels here, why do they travel here, when do they travel here. We were really trying to pitch JetBlue, and then they went to Worcester as a new airport, and we figured, well, that's just off the table. So we were actually very pleasantly surprised to get the phone call that said, you know what, we're going to pick Hyannis.
The new JetBlue New York to Hyannis route will run from June to September. Northcross says the airline is offering a $99 introduction rate.
They have committed to us through the summer, but said they're very, very interested in looking at what the fall may bring. And so we're just working now to pull together some marketing materials for them to show them how we can be marketing this new flight service this spring. The timing is perfect because we're just putting the final decision-making on our media buys and how we're going to be promoting this summer, so we can embed some of this information right in there. So I'm very optimistic that we can keep those airplane seats full and to continue this service beyond Labor Day.
Northcross says she hopes JetBlue will eventually offer the service year-round. Town residents can now view the capital plan for fiscal year 15 on the town's website. Barnstable This Morning host Sarah Colvin talked about the plan with Finance Director Mark Milne earlier today. We share a portion of that interview with you now.
Of course, we are deep in the thick of budget season. Town Council will read the capital plan for fiscal 15 into the record this week. Public hearings start in April. But I wanted to talk a little bit as we're in this process about the capital improvement plan, specifically how it's funded. So can you give me a little bit of background on what we're talking about here?
Sure. We're looking at the town manager's recommending about a $16.7 million capital program. About $10 million of that is general fund and $6.7 million in enterprise fund. For the general fund program, there's going to be several various funding sources. we actually have several appropriations that have been projects that have been completed, and there's balances remaining in some of the appropriations, and we're going to capture about $550,000 of those balances and redirect those to new projects that the town manager is proposing.
So that happens, Mark, when projects come in a little less expensive than anticipated?
That's correct. Yep, and they've been completed, and we have some small balances left over in several different projects, about a dozen of them. So, and they total up to some sizable amounts of $550,000 approximately. So, it gives us an opportunity to reprogram them for something else.
Great. That's always a plus when you get money left over after projects are done.
Absolutely. So we have a process where we review existing appropriations every year. And that's one of the steps we take to see if there's opportunities to do that. And included in the capital improvement program document this year will be a schedule of all the existing capital appropriations and what the outstanding balance status of the projects are. So that'll be very useful information.
Absolutely. So talk to me about a little bit more about where some of the other funding comes from.
Sure. We're taking about $600,000 out of general fund reserves to fund some of the projects. And we're taking about $3.6 million out of the capital trust fund reserves. Most of that's going towards the annual public road maintenance appropriation. We're also using the balance in from the funds remaining from the sale of the former Grade 5 building. That's about $740,000. We're redirecting that to several school projects. And we're going to issue about $4.2 million in new bond issues for the general fund program.
So lots of stuff there. Talk to me about the enterprise funds. As of course, those are all of the various organizations that kind of run like businesses. They make their own money. How do you work to decide how much of their money is going to be used for capital projects?
Yeah, we do for the water and sewer utilities, we do an annual rate study, and we factor into that rate study what their anticipated capital program needs are, and so the rates that we charge for the utilities are designed to recover the costs associated with any bond issuance and that we may have to incur or issue to fund the enterprise funds capital program. And as well as we look at the balances in the reserves, and any excess balance over what we feel comfortable as far as having an adequate reserve, we will look at that and use some of that for funding their capital program as well. So those are the two main funding sources for the enterprise funds: their reserve balances, bond issuances, and in the case of the airport, they receive significant grants, federal and state grants, to fund their capital program. And we're looking at several projects there that are eligible for the airport improvement program under the federal program and some state Department of Transportation grants.
Right, and definitely in my conversations with Airport Manager Bud Brialt, we have seen many of those projects almost fully funded by, as you say, state and federal funds. Is that something that we have to appropriate money for and then kind of get paid back for it later? How does that work?
Yes, exactly. That's the process is that we appropriate the full amount of the project, and then to avoid issuing a bond, we appropriate the full amount of the project with a bond issuance to fund it. But then before we actually issue the bond, if state and federal money comes in, we don't have to issue the bond. So we go back and then we rescind the bond issuance. We never actually issue it. In the case of when we use the reserves to fund an airport project, we'll use the reserves to fund the construction of the project, but then the state and federal grants received, they come back and they just replenish the airport's reserve.
Town Council will hold a public hearing on the proposed capital improvement plan Thursday, April 3rd in the Town Hall hearing room at 7 p.m. The full plan is available on the town's website. Well, be sure to tune in to Barnstable This Morning, our daily hour-long news program, live at 7 a.m. here on Channel 18. On tomorrow's show, we get a preview of the upcoming Town Council meeting with Town Council President Jessica Rapp-Grassetti. We'll also check in with Tom Kerr at the Cape Cod Regional Transit Authority. For Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Mannel.